Welcome to Indianomics. The southern states of Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu protested last week against the decline in their share from the central tax pool. But first, let me start with an explainer. Under the Indian Constitution, most of the taxes, large ones like income tax, customs, excise, are collected by the centre, but they have to be shared by the centre with the states as per the formulas arrived at by the Finance Commissions appointed every 5 years. The 16th Finance Commission has just been appointed. The 15th, that is the previous Finance Commission, divided taxes between states based on their income distance. That is how poor or rich a state is versus the national average, population according to the 2011 census, and on the basis of demographic performance, that is which states have done more for population control. There are other factors as well. Net, some states like Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, which are richer and have falling populations, find their share from the central pool has been declining. Karnataka's share has fallen from 4.7% in the 2015 to 20 period to 3.6%. Kerala's has fallen from 2.5% to 1.9%. You know, from the 14th Finance Commission period to the 15th Finance Commission period. Tamil Nadu's is mostly static. The wrath of these states is that they contribute more to the central kitty, but are increasingly getting less and less. CNBC TV18 is seeking to understand the complaints of the states over a two-part series. We earlier spoke with Mr. Thiaga, Rajan, the IT Minister of Tamil Nadu. That was the political arguments. Today I have with me the economic arguments. I have with me Professor Sudipto Mundle, member of the 14th Finance Commission and of course an economist, Dr. Pinaki Chakraborty, who was advisor to the 15th Finance Commission and previous commissions, also an economist formerly from NIPFP. In a bit, we'll also be joined by Dr. Rathin, the senior fellow at Overseas Development Institute. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time. Dr. Mundle, let me start with the political argument that I got from Mr. Thiaga Rajan. His primary point was that why can't everything be shared without any conditions? His complaint was that a large part, I mean about 30% or 20% of the total pool comes via grants which tie the states down. He would have preferred the entire amount coming as, shared according to the principles laid down by the Finance Commission. Do you think that will be an acceptable suggestion at all?
No, I think in principle, doing the maximum part of the transfers as devolution under the devolution formula on taxes as compared to grants is certainly a better way to go. But some of these grants are also given by the Finance Commission. It's not given only by the states.
Okay.
So to that extent, those are also informed by some objective criteria.
Okay. No, I'll tell you, okay, let me get Dr. Chakraborty's view on this as well. I'm probably not phrasing it as well as PTR would have. His point is that, matching grants come, more than matching grants have to be made by the states. So, for instance, if it is PM Awas Yojana, you get a percentage from the centre, but you have to put more than that from the states. And there are a whole host of conditions. Even the political advantage goes to the centre because it is called PM something, Gram Sadak Yojana or Awas Yojana. So the argument against grants is that it ties down states both by way of funds and by way of political independence. Dr. Chakraborty, what would you say? Do you think the whole amount, don't give any grants or at the most very minimal grants, everything should be shared as untied funds?
Fiscal autonomy is very important for states. Particularly when we look at the expenditure distribution. So state spends around 57-58% of the total government expenditure, taking center and states together. At the same time, there are national priorities where center will have to intervene. And I think it is always an optimal combination of tax devolution and grant that is desirable. And when it comes to sharing of matching resources, yes, that's the question of designing CSS in a particular way, rather than saying that CSS is not at all desirable.
Okay. No, but should it be?
I think that question is.
So should it be 70-30? I think at the moment it is. Dr. Mundle, after the 14th Finance Commission, is it 70-30? The untied versus tied funds, if you please, or grants versus tax devolution?
Yeah, the audio remains. I couldn't hear what Pinaki said. So I
Okay.
have no idea what he said. But basically, you are talking about a very particular component of grants, which are known as centrally sponsored schemes.
Okay.
Grants have various categories, I said. Some of these are even finance commission grants. But these are very specific items which are on the 70-30 basis. And there are conditions laid down. I think the problem there is that they are not flexible enough. I mean, there's too much of micro designing and detailing being done here in New Delhi rather than leaving it. Now, the condition of Kerala and, say, Assam are not the same on, say, the education grant.
Okay.
However, if you lay down all the details in the center without leaving any flexibility to the states, then that's a problem, according to me.
Okay, let me come to another point where perhaps there is more agreement among at least the non-BJP states. The fact that a large part of or a rising part of the pool is coming in as cesses and therefore not shareable. Now, I'm quoting from an answer given by the finance minister in parliament, so I assume the data is above board. This was given in December 2022 by Nirmala Sitharaman. The total amount of cess surcharges and cesses as part of the centre's gross revenue has gone up from 8.6% in 2010-11 to 28% in 21-22. Dr. Chakraborty, is it fair to ask of the 16th Finance Commission that this has to be capped at a much lower figure?
Yes, cess and surcharges reducing divisible pool is a concern for the states. But the issue is extremely complex. Complex on two counts. First, a large part of these cess and surcharges are financing these centrally sponsored schemes. And center has a large revenue deficit. So if we say that this becomes part of the divisible pool of taxes, that means all the cess and surcharges are merged with the divisible pool, in that case, we need to also think about how CSS should be financed. If CSS are then also financed on a 60-40 basis, it can lead to large macroeconomic instability because center already has a large revenue deficit and it will not have the money to finance these CSS. So I think what is most important is to look at how much CSS center can have given the overall availability of resources after giving tax devolution to the states. That's the first point. Second issue is about flexibility to the states as far as CSS fund allocation is concerned. Since CSS is one size fits all, as Dr. Mundle mentioned, I think it is important to create I know there is a small flexi pool available. I think it is very important to create a larger volume of flexi pool where states who have got different kind of fiscal needs can actually pull from these sources, and the normal CSS should go to the states meant for meant for the overall objective of improving say health or education. So this is these are two issues, and third issue important in this context is the issue of revenue account versus capital account. I think all the transfers that we are talking about, whether grants, whether it is tax devolution, this is only to equalize revenue expenditure of states, and there is capital expenditure where richer states have huge advantage because they are able to borrow 3% of their GSDP, which is much higher than a
of a
poorer state. So that way, I think with the net fiscal outcome of rich versus poor need a better understanding and discussion.
Okay, no, that's a fair point. But they also have perhaps larger states, perhaps a larger population. The states, it's after all 3% of gross fiscal deficit for everyone. Dr. Mundle, what's your take on the Cesses issue? You think the 16th Finance Commission better consider a cap, which was the ask of the Tamil Nadu state?
It's an issue on which I think we have to think about what is the constitutional provision. I mean, the 16th Finance Commission also has to make its recommendations within the boundaries of what the Constitution permits. And if the Constitution does not, allow putting a cap on cesses and surcharges, then that will be difficult for the 16th if we go that route. But they can certainly make a recommendation that of the total tax take of the center, cess and surcharges should not exceed a certain percentage of it, and the bulk of it should be part of the shareable pool.
Okay.
The remainder being, as Pinaki was mentioning, to finance the centre's deficit.
How about having an inverse relation, that if you take away more on cesses, then the state's share of the pool will also increase? At the moment, it is 60-40 in favor of the centre. 40% is transferred. If you have more cesses, then it, to that extent, you deduct. A formula like that?
Yeah, it can certainly be, but you see, the Finance Commission can't pass jurisdiction about what the centre does with the cesses and surcharges. The Finance Commission can only recommend some grants.
Okay. Fair.
It is not within its purview to.
But it can, so it can decide how much is shared between centre and states, isn't it? The 14th finance, your commission made it,
of the shareable pool. The cesses and surcharges are outside the shareable pool.
I agree. But can you all recommend can the 16th commission recommend a larger share to the states versus the centre from the shareable pool?
It can certainly say that because cesses and surcharges have gone up so much, and 20% is not a small amount, that, therefore the shareable pool proportion can be raised. I would personally like to see things move in that direction, with the share of cess and surcharges being reduced. But I understand that there is also a fiscal deficit that needs financing. But then one can't talk about this in isolation without looking at the expenditure priorities. Are all the expenses being made appropriate, or should have cuts on the expenditure side to reduce deficit, and not just focus on raising cesses and surcharges?
Okay. Dr. Mundle and Dr. Chakraborty, thank you very much indeed for shedding more light on how we should think about the sharing of resources. We will wait and see what the 16th Finance Commission has to say. We'll take a quick break. Thereafter, we should be getting Dr. Rathin of the Overseas Development Institute for his comment on how the resources should be shared.